Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cyber Prophets. Today, we're going to talk about a very controversial topic, a topic that is going around everywhere. What is this topic, Federico?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Yes. Have you heard about it? ChatGPT is this OpenAI chatbot that can answer basically every question. And now there have been some discussions that it may even lead to programmers or developers losing their jobs. Is that an actual possibility? What do you think, Federico?
I do believe that it's gonna happen. I've been thinking that AI, no-code solutions, low-code solutions are gonna replace common developers. And in other cases, if you are smart enough, you can empower yourself. I have a friend who works in data science, and he's using ChatGPT to, let's say, simplify his work and don't write extra code. So it's up to you how you use it.
So you have heard it, Federico thinks that ChatGPT, or let's call it quote unquote AI, will take over our role as developers. But now, let's go a bit deeper in a more structured way about this topic. First of all, we're going to give you an explanation of what ChatGPT is, and then we're going to do a live run to see how this tool is able to answer our questions and probably uh, even to fulfill some development tasks. Let's go for it. First of all, what is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is a generative pre-trained transformer. That is the acronym for ChatGPT. And this is a chatbot. It's a chatbot launched by a company called OpenAI. Was launched in November 2022, so it's quite recent. However, it gained a lot of popularity. Why? Because it is able to articulate responses in a human fashion, and it can answer accurately in many, many domains of knowledge. Now, this is based on some AI modeling, which is called GPT. And GPT, as I mentioned before, is the generative pre-trained transformer. We are entering into very, very technical topics now. And just to give you like a brief introduction about it, it is a neural network learning model, and is trained using the internet data, and it can generate any type of text. This company, OpenAI, trained this tool, this ChatGPT, and now it is able to answer many questions. Now, let's start with the live run. First of all, we have prepared for you something like very funny. We saw this meme across our LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and let me read it out loud. When I was 6, my sister was half my age. Now I'm 70. How old is my sister? Let's see how ChatGPT can answer this question.
Just important to highlight it, if you are listening us in Spotify, Apple, I will suggest you to go to YouTube so you can enjoy the full experience. It will simplify, especially that you can visualize what my co-host Edgar is gonna text and what I will do later.
So I have here a new chat with this tool, ChatGPT, and as you can see, the very first things that it tells me are some examples. Like he can, for example, explain quantum computing in simple terms. They can answer if they got any creative ideas for a 10 years old birthday, or how can I make HTTP requests in JavaScript? Oh, these are the topics that interest us. However, it can also tell us that it has some limitations, that it may occasionally generate incorrect information, it may occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content, and it has limited knowledge of the world and events after 2021. So let's start with the joke I just mentioned. When I was 6, my sister was half my age. Now I'm 70. How old is my sister? We can see here the line of thought that the tool made, and it answered, if you are 17 years old now and your sister was half your age when you were 6, then when you were 6, your sister was 6 divided by 2 equals 3 years old. Okay, we got the first input right. If your sister was 3 years old when you were 6 and you are 70 years old now, that means your sister has age 70 minus 6. Okay, why minus 6? That equals 64 years. Therefore, your sister is currently 64 years old. Let's discuss a bit about it. Federico, what do you think about ChatGPT's answer?
I think that even changed because the last time it gave us it was 63.
Yeah, actually, the answer that we saw in this meme was 63, but now I got the answer 64. So definitely it can have, like, as the limitations, right? It can definitely have some mistakes from time to time. Now, that was like something funny. I was not sure if it was able to answer correctly this question, but as we can see during our first try, it was not able to. Let's continue with something a bit more complicated. Federico, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I have an idea that we can try to create a tic-tac-toe. We're going to create, as I said, a tic-tac-toe using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Why we're going to use these technologies? Because in comparison to other complex programming languages, you need an IDE, you need something else, and more things that might not be what you would like. While in this case, it's something that we can test, and if we need to modify something, we can do it. So let's see what ChatGPT can provide us. For sure, what it's going to do is going to do an analysis inside of the websites or other sources that it has, and it starts generating the information that we need. Probably we'll need to combine them because in some cases, what ChatGPT does is that it splits the results. The first thing that you can see, as you see, is the HTML. In some cases, it can combine all the code into one, but it's not always the case.
Oh, it has separated the files.
Yeah. That's why in the end, we will need to add some HTML code to finish it, but well, sometimes happens. But in the end, imagine if you would like to build this and you don't know too much about JavaScript or CSS, you might invest a lot of time from your own code. And that's a tricky thing because imagine all the time that you spend into writing this code when you don't know enough or you need to test, think, and build even a small game. That can be even a small thing for your child.
So it created for you 3 files, one HTML, one CSS, and one JavaScript, and now it is giving you an explanation.
Yeah, but the JavaScript, in my opinion, is incomplete because for sure it's not doing everything that we need. And we can ask, complete the JavaScript.
Why do you think it's not complete? Looks pretty much complete to me. Can you try it?
Yeah, let's check it. Now we're going to test the code. How we're going to do it? We're going to use a simple notepad. This is a little bit more advanced code, Notepad++, where we copy the sections of the code. This is the HTML. We need to add the style. Then we can copy the style. And finally, we can add the script. As you see in this case, it didn't provide us the entire code so you can just copy and paste. You might need to have some knowledge for these sections. And then we have in theory, the functional code. We can add it as a game. And now we can run it in the browser, which is one of the advantages. But in my opinion, the code seems to be wrong.
It's not doing anything, right?
Yeah. Now we will ask to create something more complex that probably it will make it work. Which in my opinion, something didn't work as expected, and it's creating even a quite complex code, to be honest.
Wow, it has all of the winning combinations.
Yeah, I expected something differently, to be honest.
Interesting. What did you expect?
I remember that once I tested this code and I created like something more dynamic instead of creating the winning combinations, which in my opinion can be tricky because this is a simple game, but if you had a more complex game, like let's say a chess, it will not work. But yeah, it's creating the code, which is the most important part. And we will see if this time it's working because probably either I made a mistake or ChatGPT made a mistake. We will see who is the one who made the mistake.
So just one question, like, can you check the HTML code and see whether it created you like it created for you some how to say it, like some tags to link the CSS and the JS files?
Well, in theory, it created all the, because this is called
Go up.
tic-tac-toe.
Oh, but like go up, please, to the beginning of the, yeah, that's the beginning of the code, right? Okay, so it actually didn't. Okay, that was like a quite simple tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, now in theory, we have the new code. We can
JS.
replace the JS because for me it seems like now we should have a new one. I don't think that is really working. Something seems to be broken. Yeah, something is broken.
Something is off, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you can see that some mistakes happen because we come to analyze what is the code behind, and it says a new game button. In theory, there is a button that it didn't create that is called new game.
The ID should be new game.
Yeah.
So do you have that in the HTML?
No, it doesn't
That seems
exist.
right.
Yeah, and this is where we can see that it created a lot of code, but it's not really working. So let's modify it.
So probably it did it did use different sources for every time you asked it to create like the code, it used different sources.
Now it seems that it looks different. Let's do a new game.
Okay, still not. Still not working.
Maybe I did a mistake. Oh yeah, I made a mistake. This was my mistake, not ChatGPT's mistake.
Yeah, but still not working.
Let's see if we can create a new one. Let's say regenerate the answer, or let's create a new one.
Oh wow, it did apologize. That's something funny. At least you know that this tool knows manners.
Yeah. Now it's creating a completely different one that it seems a bit more sophisticated, to be honest.
It already has the style, and as you can see that it starts with doc type HTML, HTML tags, etc., and all the CSS is included already.
Yeah.
Inside one file.
And this looks even different because the previous case it was using a tab, another logic. Now it's using like a newer code.
Yeah. Oh, there's the button.
Yeah, the button.
There you go. There you go. That's the button what we were expecting.
Probably the main issue is that the previous time it was using a different JavaScript code, let's say CSS and HTML, because it looks different, but the JavaScript, it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I remember having these combinations in the previous run, in the previous code.
That the JavaScript is the same. It's just that the CSS and the HTML now, probably that was the mistake.
You know what I find really useful is that it even gives you some comments on every line of code. What is it doing and what it is actually for?
What the developers don't do often.
Well, we can have a big discussion about that, Rico, because I don't do it either. and I think it's a good practice not to have it.
So as you see, it didn't.
So did it finish?
It didn't finish the code because it has a limit in the amount of characters. However, we can copy the next part of the code and see how it behaves. Because the difficult thing is that, as Edgar said previously, probably it was using a different source and it was breaking everything. So let's see how it behaves now. We have the new code. We might need to close some things that were not done.
Okay.
And in theory now we have the new code that should work slightly different.
Oh, it even looks differently.
It looks differently, but it seems that I'm not sure if the new is required. It's not working. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but...
Did you copy the JavaScript? Because I think you didn't.
I hope it did. Let's ask ChatGPT, can you complete the JavaScript?
It's apologizing again. This tool, ChatGPT, really knows its manners.
It is more educated than the majority of people.
It is indeed.
It's creating a lot of code, even though you might expect that the application will create the small things. Let's see if this time it works, because it is tricky that it didn't do anything.
But if you can see, like most of the code is very similar to what we have seen in the previous attempts.
Yeah, I would be quite impressed if it's different.
Although this time it looks a bit more extensive. Okay, now it's creating the explanation. So it has finished the code.
Okay, in theory we have the new code. Maybe we can move it to the upper part, but I don't think it should influence anyway. Okay, now it should be ready.
Oh,
it's giving.
No, you have to keep it at the lower part because of this. And it's still not working. Oh, someone wins.
We won.
What happened?
The funny thing is that we won, but it didn't show any X or
We
zero.
won, but like.
So it is not working.
Okay, try it again. Try it again.
Okay, we're getting a new section
Wow.
to go.
Okay.
Let's see if this time it works, because It is funny that we even asked that it didn't recognize the things and it's getting a new one. Let's see if it really works, because the stuff is that it has been not working. We need to search for this that says place mark.
Place mark. Yeah, it's now it's 3 lines of code, right?
Okay, I feel it like the same. Let's do an empty cache and hard reset. Okay.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Oh, X Wings.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. New game? Yeah, try it out. Oh, okay, now the new game button is not working.
Okay, so let's see if we can finally clean it and fix it.
You know what I find really interesting is that it recognizes that its own functions have some problems and proposes a solution.
Yeah, which is something that sometimes is not so common. It works similar to a human. You make a lot of mistakes and then you try to fix it.
You start debugging and debugging.
Typical coders.
Yeah, it's a bit more
Extensive. So
let's see. There you go. Recognize. Yeah. Oh, there you go. It looks like it's working now. Oh, yeah, X-Wings. Yeah. What happened there? Was it right?
Yeah. Well, it said there was a draw.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. Like, I saw 2 messages immediately, so I didn't get what was happening.
Oh, it even understood where could be the problem.
Okay, can you see this? If check for win is actually called before. Okay, let's just wait for it to give you the code. Yeah, it's still a bit more
complex.
Mm-hmm.
Draw.
Yeah, that's correct. Now
the
make
next
it
test.
x0 x. There you go.
There was a draw.
Yeah, that's correct. Seems to be working correctly now.
Yeah, now it seems to be working correctly. Now it's working perfectly. We had several tries.
Great. Let's discuss it.
It wasn't perfect at all.
Yeah, it needed many attempts and many iterations. How many?
I think it was like 4, if I'm not wrong.
4, 5. And also something important was that it was not like runnable code, what you got immediately. Instead, like the first attempt, for instance, you had to create the 3 files and you needed to actually include the tags into the HTML. So it's not something that you can run immediately. On the second attempt, though, it did give you like all the code in one file, right?
Yeah.
So this was more of a runnable version, but still it contained many bugs. So what do you think about it? What are your thoughts on it, Rico?
Well, even if we got a lot of bugs, we save a lot of time. And if I was seeing it from the developer's perspective, developers are lazy and developers don't want to code. So it simplifies your life. In the end, you will need to modify some stuff, but in the end, it provided you with the answers without going to Stack Overflow, without going to the internet, Googling a lot of forums. In the end, it provided you with the answer. It was not in the first attempt, but it solved the task. And that's the most important. If we think how long it took us to create the game, maybe like 20 minutes, something like that, or a little bit less, just with a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And in the average time you are doing as a coder, probably you will invest a larger amount of time if you're not only in the, let's say, game development sector.
Yeah, that's something important. Yeah, it greatly increased our productivity, let's say. First of all, we didn't have to implement any business logic. We didn't have to implement any logic about the game. We didn't have to worry about any, how to say it, any singularities about handling the events in JavaScript and how to call these like new game buttons and all these kind of functions. We didn't think about it. We were just doing some sort of mechanical work, let's say, in adding these small tags or maybe changing some functions after the many iterations that we had. But we didn't have to think, like put our brain power into it. So, well, that can be actually like a win and a loss, because as a software developer, you really want to put your brain power, right? On the other side, like as we saw, with a couple of questions, we were able to create this tic-tac-toe. Now, let's move forward and let's discuss a bit about how this ChatGPT was developed, and let's basically try to answer the question, is AI going to replace us? Let's do it with the help of ChatGPT. So I have here again my screen where we ask this small joke. And now let's ask something more interesting, like for instance, the answer is quite clear. I am an AI language model trained by OpenAI. I have been designed to learn and understand language and to generate human-like text. That's what we mentioned at the beginning. I have learned from a vast amount of text data that has been fed into me, and I use this knowledge to answer questions and provide information to users like you. I don't have personal experiences or first-hand knowledge, but I can provide information and generate responses based on what I have learned from the data that has been fed into me. Let's move forward. Let's ask something more tricky. Do you have emotions? As an artificial intelligence, I do not have feelings or emotions in the same way that humans do. Well, that's pretty much expected. I am able to process and understand emotions in language and recognize patterns that might indicate the presence of emotions, but I do not experience emotions myself. I am a machine and I do not have personal experiences or subjective states. I am designed to assist users and provide information, and I do not have the capacity to feel emotions or have personal desires or motivations. Well, that's pretty much a machine-like response. And let's ask ChatGPT whether they are going to take our jobs. Are you going to replace software developers in the future? That's quite an interesting response. Let's read it. There is a lot of interest in using artificial intelligence to automate certain tasks, including tasks related to software development. However, it is unlikely that AI will completely replace software developers in the near future. While AI can be very useful for automating certain tasks and helping with certain aspects of software development, it is not able to fully replicate the creativity and problem-solving abilities of human software developers. It is more likely that AI will be used to augment the work of software developers rather than replace them completely. Now let's discuss these answers. What are your thoughts on it, Federico?
I still believe that there is some pre-trained answers, but I do believe that in the future the main objective of many tools like ChatGPT or other ones that are being built by large companies is to release software developers. It might sound harsh, but the reality is you are an expensive kind of blue collar worker. And the main objective for companies is to save money and to create money back to their shareholders.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
So if they can reduce money, they can reduce humans doing their work.
So do you think that that AI will completely replace software developers?
No, I don't think so. If you work in C++, let's say C or Rust, or let's say low codes like these ones that are the ones that are under ChatGPT, I don't think that you will be replaced.
Okay.
But if you're doing like mechanical tasks, like building websites, it's probably something quite likely. I will say apps is something harder to replace, but
Mm-hmm.
certain tasks can be done because there is so much code in GitHub. There are so many examples over the
Yeah.
internet that as soon as ChatGPT has access to new code that is open source, it can create pretty much anything that comes to your mind.
Yeah. I think that this is something important to mention. That first of all, one of the limitations for ChatGPT is that it cannot browse the web, and it has a cutoff date in 2021. So that means that newer information, they don't know anything about it. However, what will happen if they were able to browse the web? Yeah, that will be a very interesting experiment. On the other hand, what Federico mentioned about replacing our jobs, I think that I have to agree with Federico that the most mechanical tasks, such as creating a website, that might be to a large extent done by AI. Yeah. However, I once heard that these AI tools, such as ChatGPT, lack context. They do not know the complete context in which a tool is being developed. So for instance, if you are working in an industry, you're developing an application, and you ask ChatGPT to make a function for you, they do not know like the big picture. How does this small function integrate into your code and into the big picture of the application? So this lack of context is what makes it difficult for AI to completely replace these software developers, because software developers can actually do have this knowledge of the whole context and can know where to place this function specifically. However, ChatGPT, as far as this small limited function is related, they can actually provide you with the code. And that is the part where I think that we as software developers do not have to be afraid of using these tools, but we have to learn to use them to our advantage, actually, to be more productive. We saw this in the example of the tic-tac-toe. We saw that we were able to develop a tic-tac-toe quite quickly, and we wouldn't have been able to do it this quickly if we would have done it everything from scratch.
Also, as I told you, like I have another friend who is a data scientist and he started to use ChatGPT to simplify his life. He
Yeah.
works for a large company related to maps, and in his work, he started to use it. He's not afraid of using AI to his advantage. He's empowering himself to be the best one in his company, in his team, and that people can see that he can empower himself. is in the end is how you use the tools. It's like it's gonna replace us. If you are in something that is really repetitive, probably yes. But if you are able to use this to your own advantage, you will empower yourself to reach a new heights.
And I think that we can end with that conclusion. And it all depends on how you use the tools that you have. If you can use them to your advantage, or you can just ignore them, but then you run the risk of actually being replaced by them. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more about cyber profits. For next week, we have more interesting topics, and see you next week.